Hello and welcome to Rise Unwind. My name is Dan. You know, each and every week we talk to people from across the country about things you could do right now in your neighborhood. And on this week's show, we got this.
Really cool to see this resonating with the fans and continuing that buzz and, helping breathe life into some of these restaurants that have been around for a long time that aren't forgotten, but just somewhat aren't, the forefront of the food scene.
Before the game, I always go to the stadium like 10-15 minutes before. I always go to check the sensitive areas.
We're working hand in hand with the local ecosystem that are supporting these patients to have the ambition of earlier intervention. That is the key of making a huge difference across cancer, cardiovascular disease, respiratory disease, kidney care, as well as lupus and a host of others.
All of that and more right here on Rise and Unwind. A lot of action franchises try to go bigger every time, but Jack Ryan Ghost War is also digging into trust, loyalty, and what service really costs. The new film continues the world's fans already know while standing on its own for people jumping in fresh. And joining us today is the legendary Wendell Pierce, who returns as James Greer. Wendell, it's great to have you on the show, my friend. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, James Greer has always been one of the most grounded characters in this world. What do you enjoy most about stepping back into him for Ghost War?
The character of James Greer really reflects some of the people that I met doing the research of this character. Real CIA officers, retired, who have kind of given me their true north to form a more perfect union, and some of the debate that they have within the agency, and but understanding that the shared idealism of working on the mission, which is to form a more perfect union and protect that. Those are shared values, and so stepping back into the role, that's the thing that I'd love to portray. As an actor, you're a student of human behavior. And what you want to do is create the world so strong that it induces that behavior. And that's the great thing about reliving a role like James Greer.
One thing John Krasinski mentioned is that the story works for both longtime fans and for people who've never watched the series. Was that something you felt like while you were making it too?
Oh, absolutely. You don't have to be familiar with the series at all. You can come to this fresh. You will see the history that we have as characters. You will see our relationship. You see our expertise, and then also you have this story of what's happening now, this casual act that I ask a favor of Jack Ryan to do for me that actually ignites a global espionage chase. And so it is one of those things that people who have seen the series can come to and appreciate the next level of where we take the characters, and people who come to this fresh and new. But what we do over the course of a series, put into a 2-hour movie, is just heightened and it makes it a lot more intense.
And you said it's been heightened, it's more cinematic, a little bigger, but it also keeps the political and moral tensions that Tom Clancy's stories are known for. What kind of balance does this film strike between action and some of the character?
Well, I think it's very important. I'm very proud of the fact that we keep the debate happening about the clarity of mission and clarity of what values are, and the political debate that happens around that, because that is happening within the world, what happens within the agency, and it makes you, as the viewer, look at it and decide what your values are. That's the forum of what filmmaking should be about, the place where we collectively come together, reflect on who we are, decide where we want to go, decide what our values are, maybe bring that into our lives. And so I love that we have that debate, and at the same time have some of the best cinematic thrill sequences of action comparable to the French Connection and Marathon Man and all of that. So I'm very proud of the cinematic and the debate that happens within the film.
And fans, they know you from so many incredible roles from over the years, but there's something about Greer that people really connect with. What do you think keeps audiences invested in this character and this franchise?
I try to make James Greer a everyman. That people look at it and go, there but by the grace of God go I. That they can see themselves in in James Greer. He's a man of pragmatism. He's a family man. He's flawed as he tries and did not succeed in keeping his family together. But with all of that, he is principled. And he attempts to hang on to his principles and values. And people will see themselves in that, you know. Not someone who's perfect, but someone who's pragmatic and at least tries to live by some sort of moral code. And that's who we all are, and that's who we are when we dream of who we can become. So that's the thing that makes him prescient, you know, and personal. And that's what I pride myself on when I try to portray him.
Yeah, thanks for being here today. Jack Ryan, Ghost War premieres May 20th on Prime Video. Wendell Pierce, I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Imagine waking up in somebody else's body and it's your worst enemy. Swab follows a tiny woodland creature and a majestic bird who suddenly switch bodies and are forced to work together to survive. It's a fun, fast-moving story, but underneath it all, it really is about empathy, family, and seeing life from a different perspective. The film features a big cast, including Michael B. Jordan and Cedric the Entertainer, who plays a father at the center of it all. Cedric the Entertainer is here with us now. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you?
All right, good, brother. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. The story behind this blends comedy with a real message about empathy. What stood out to you when you first read this script?
You know, I mean, I really love the idea of this, you know, father-son kind of relationship. The son is kind of stretching out, trying to, you know, experiment and find a new way in life, and his father that's trying to hold on to the traditions in which we kind of lived by, and those things that he felt make them safe and that he would do as a father. And I think that, you know, generationally, you know, my real life is dealing with that. My son is that 25-year-old with bigger ideas than I had at 25, and the guts to go and try them sometimes. So you're like, whoa, I don't know if you can do that, right? And so I think that's what I really resonated with me, is this idea that the generations after you always push the line a little bit further down the street.
And the whole idea is about literally seeing life from somebody else's point of view. What do you think audiences will take home from that?
You know, I think it's very poignant to the times that we live in, and for all of us to be able to kind of embrace what it would be like to be in someone else's shoes, to be in their particular circumstance, and understand that if I just had an opportunity to see it from that POV, I could be more tolerant, I could be cooler, I could be, more accepting of differences. And I think that that's really important, that the youth see this. Of course, that's the energy that the animated movies are about, but the adults who take them to the movies will see it in their own adult way. These kind of themes that I think will allow for a great message, but a great moment of entertainment.
And when this project came your way, what was it about Swap that stood out to you?
I mean, really, I like the storyline of, again, of who this father was. I wanted to have, we were expecting to be delivering a lot more comedy, but once I realized it was like, a kind of a sincere, discerning role, that was even greater. It was an opportunity to do something that was a little different than what I normally do. So, but I love playing these father characters, but this one was like, again, you understood that the comedy relief was going to come from somewhere else, and I was there to kind of help support the story, and that was great. There's like a different kind of acting skill that you get to use when you kind of like make sure that you're the person that's carrying the plot and keeping the story alive itself.
And being part of a cast like this with voices like Michael B. Jordan and Juno Temple, what was that experience like for you?
I mean, again, another exciting part to do it. I mean, of course, Michael B. Jordan, this was, even when we started doing this, was pre the hype of Sinners. So we had no idea he was going to become an Oscar winner and all these things. So, but but he was just, a great talent, one that you knew had great potential of being a superstar. And of course, Juno is fun. I love Ted Lasso and her roles, and then Tracy Morgan's one of my great friends. And so, I was just looking forward to having a good time while all being on the same project.
All right, Cedric, thanks for joining us today. You can catch Swapped on Netflix right now. Definitely a fun one to throw on this weekend. Thank you for joining us once again, Cedric.
Thank you. I'll holler.
You may not know his name, but if you've ever watched soccer over the past few years, you've probably seen him. Yassine Cheuko became a familiar face protecting some of the biggest stars in the sport. And with the World Cup excitement continuing to build here in the United States, he's giving us a look at what it takes to stay ready in some of the most intense environments in sports. Yassine, it's great to have you with us. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. What about you?
I'm doing okay myself. People recognize you from those viral moments around the game, but what do most people get wrong about what you actually do?
So I'm very happy to do that. I'm doing this job now since 5 years. I'm very grateful. It's a blessing for me to be on the side on the best athlete history. I learned every day. I love him so much. I love my job, and it's amazing for me. I'm living the dream.
And you've been around some of the most passionate crowds in sports. What do you think makes soccer fan culture different than anything else?
You know, soccer, it's a very popular sport. Everybody around the world watching soccer. People from Europe, Africa, India, Asia. Soccer, it brings people together. So it's very exciting. And I think it's the most popular sport in the world.
Absolutely. When you're in a packed stadium or like a high pressure situation, what are you paying attention to that the rest of us probably don't even notice?
So before the game, I always go to the stadium like 10-15 minutes before. I always go to check the sensitive area, sensitive spot when people, they can jump easy. So during the game, I'm always focused on this sensitive spot on the players. I don't watch the game at all. Even if you ask me how is the game going, I cannot tell you because I don't know. I just focused on my job, on the crowd of the players.
And you're surrounded by elite athletes every single day. What does your own training and preparation look like to stay on that level?
You know, I start to train at 13 years old. I'm training now for more than 30 years. I used to be a Muay Thai fighter in Thailand. So training, it's part of my life. I train every day. I eat healthy. I sleep good. And this helps me a lot to keep my mind in peace and to be in peace with people and with my work.
And you see nowadays so many soccer players and fans drinking the yerba mate. For someone that has never even tried it, what's the appeal and why has it become part of even your routine?
Yerba mate, it's very important for me. I'm drinking this now since 5 years. And yerba mate is a plant from South America. And it gives you focus, it gives you a boost. It's more than a drink. It's something you can share with your family, with your friends. And it's part of my life now. And you're gonna see a lot of soccer players during the World Cup drinking this because it helps you a lot for your performance in the field, off the field. Even if you are not an athlete, if you run a company or something, it's very good for your focus. You should try.
I actually love this stuff myself. Well, thank you for sending over one of these little packets for me again. If you want to learn more about yerba mate and traditions behind it, you got to visit yerbamadre.com. Thanks for joining me today, Yassine.
Thank you for having me.
Some people travel for the sights, some people travel for the food. Braun Strowman does both and usually orders enough for the whole table. The WWE superstar is back for another season of Everything on the Menu, where he visits some of America's best food cities, meets local legends, and tries everything from neighborhood favorites to high-end dining spots. Joining us now is Braun Strowman. Welcome to the show, my friend. How are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm fantastic. Just, the season is just unbelievable, man. It's truly cool to see the evolution of where we've gone from season 1 into season 2 with having the guest on the show. My production team in post-production did such an amazing job of filming this and editing it. It really, it makes you feel like you're part of that conversation. You're sitting at that table, you're breaking bread. And at the end of the day, the idea of this whole show come about with this is my love for going out and taking people out to eat food, getting them to try new experiences in the culinary arts and walk of life, and just have fun. Food is a vessel to bring people together to get them together at the table for conversation. I had guests that I'd never met before, so I have new friends. So you're kindling relationships, you're catching up with old friends, you're falling in love. All is centered around food. And why not do it with the biggest, baddest SOB on the planet? And you're looking at him right here with Braun Strowman every Friday night on USA Network. Life is absolutely awesome.
All right, this new season takes you to 12 different cities across the country. What were some of the places that really surprised you this time around?
Oh man, honestly, it's always evolving. I'm so excited. I mean, I'm 350 pounds. I didn't get this way by accident, so clearly I'm a foodie as at heart as it is. So for me, my day-to-day life, I'm eating out of a Tupperware. I'm weighing out all my proteins, my carbohydrates to the gram. So at the end of all that, like I said, doing this for weeks on end and then getting to do the everything on the menu is my escape as well. It's the ultimate cheat meal. It's getting out there. You know, not all calories are meant to be the best for your body, but some of them feed your soul. And I make sure I keep my soul fed. I make sure I keep this giant meat castle that I am fed, and then making memories and putting smiles on people's faces. At the end of the day, that's what I love doing. That's what I truly believe I was put on this earth to do, was to entertain and make people happy. And I'm enjoying and loving it along the way.
That's killer. When you spend years traveling for WWE, but the show gives you a chance to experience cities like on a completely different way. What do you learn about a place when you sit down and just share a meal there?
It's really neat because how the format of the show with doing the 2 restaurants every episode, and that first half of the show being the signature dish for that city, for that region, and shining a light, proverbial light on some of these older restaurants that have been around. All those restaurants I do are 40, 50, 60, 70 years. And, some of them aren't up to date on their social media games and all this. So being able, and then knowing what we did in season 1 of having some of the highest, if not the highest demo ratings in that 18 to 44, is now knowing that these generational restaurants are getting seen by the next generation. I've talked to people that went to some of these restaurants and they live in the town of, like, it's been there for 6 years. I didn't even know this restaurant was here. So hearing those stories, seeing prime example, Beefy King in Orlando is a roast beef sandwich shop that I went to in season 1. It's been open for almost 60 years. Every time I've gone there since we did that episode there, you can't even get into the parking lot. Before I headed out to start all the crazy media tour and all this other stuff, getting ready season 2 premiere that just happened June 5th. Walked in and there was 4 people standing in line that had saw the rerun of the episode the night before. We're in Orlando on vacation. We're like, we have to go to BB King. I walk in, their eyes lit up. No way you're here. They ordered my custom sandwich on it that they put on the menu. So it's really cool to see this resonating with the fans and continuing that buzz and, helping breathe life into some of these restaurants that have been around for a long time that aren't forgotten, but just somewhat aren't, the forefront of the food scene. And then the other half of the restaurant where I go in and do everything on the menu, that's where, you get this opportunity. These restaurants have this opportunity to show their full Rolodex to all the clientele and customers and foodies alike out there. And while all the great food shows that have been before me and stuff like that, you've got to see a little bit of here and there, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 dishes. So with being everything on the menu and seeing this whole, here's my cards, here's what this restaurant has to offer. And then sitting down now, season 2, having a guest with me and being able to have the debates back and forth. What do you taste in this? How do you understand? What is your palate telling you? And then with mine as well. And then having the conversation, talking about life and everything else in between. And it just makes for, all honesty, I wish the show was longer. I think 30 minutes isn't enough.
The season features a pretty incredible mix of guests, from comedians to musicians to athletes and fellow WWE stars. And hopefully next season you bring in bad TV hosts of local TV shows. I'd be happy to have lunch with you.
Everybody likes to eat. Let's go. And don't put yourself down. We don't do that. Lift yourself up. You're a great TV host.
All right. Who else brought the most unexpected energy to the table?
Oh my goodness. Without telling too much, because you got to tune in live every week to watch, I can't be giving away too much. Honestly, it was special every episode. It's so cool because I had so many different walks of life and hearing people's stories and their backstories and what's got them to where they are, what continues to keep them pushing and evolving, and then what their love is for food. It was so cool to see people, starting to understand, or some of the guests that I had, I didn't know they were such foodies. So it's really cool to sit there and have that conversation, because that's the fun thing about food is everybody, it's a little different to everyone, and it's having that opportunity to have that conversation. And like I said, that food is the whole reason that it brings people together. So why not celebrate and eat everything on the menu?
Excellent. After visiting all these restaurants and meeting the people behind them, what do you hope viewers take away from the show, just beyond, just getting hungry watching you eat?
I think the biggest thing for me is trying to get people to step outside their normal comfort zone in their foods. I've discovered my motto in life is I'll try anything twice to make sure I don't like it, especially in the food space. So there's not much at this point that I haven't consumed in my life. That was the blessing that I had with being a WWE superstar for 12 years, traveling all around the world, getting to try so many different walks of life in the culinary space and falling in love with the different cooking techniques and the fusions and the ingredients and all that. And now with everything on the menu, almost every episode, I'm pretty sure, if not, it was few and far between, but I got the guests to try foods that they'd never tried before. So I'm hoping with my blue collar approach, and, I'm not educated in the culinary arts. I've just been blessed to travel around and get to eat a lot. I mean, 350 pounds didn't happen by accident. And I guess the Lord blessed me with this giant tongue with a bunch of extra taste buds or something like that. I don't know. But that just being said, man, life's so cool, man. It's really neat. Like I said, getting to catch up with some of my friends, get to meet these new personalities and share bread and just talk about life. It makes for a good time.
Braun, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. For more information and to catch new episodes of Everything on the Menu, check it out Friday nights on USA Network or head to usanetwork.com. Braun Strowman, thanks for hanging out with me, my friend.
From cancer and heart disease to obesity and other chronic conditions, new medications can change lives. But getting those treatments from the resource stage to patients takes years of work and investment. AstraZeneca is announcing a $50 billion commitment to expand research and manufacturing here in the United States. Joining us from the New York Stock Exchange is Rick Suarez, Senior Vice President, U.S. President, and Head of AstraZeneca's U.S. Biopharmaceutical Business Unit. Thank you for joining us, Rick.
And thank you for having me, Avi. I very much appreciate it.
So we hear about medical breakthroughs all the time, but what does it actually take to turn scientific discovery into treatment that reaches patients?
Well, Avi, first and foremost, it's exciting to hear the word breakthrough, and that's exactly what we're seeing. However, breakthrough in the lab is only the beginning. Let me ground you on a fact. 90% of medicines that start off in clinical trials never get approval. That means that it's so important for us to dedicate resources, investments like you've mentioned, to ensure that we have the most robust pipeline possible to bring these medicines to patients. There's something I always like to say, innovation only matters when it reaches the patients. So at AstraZeneca, we have a huge responsibility to make said investments so that we are really positioning ourselves to have breakthroughs in science. That means taking risks in new areas, cardiovascular treatment, respiratory treatment, rare disease, and cancer. And only by taking those risks and having that diligence and focus can we bring these life-changing medicines to patients. So when you hear the word breakthrough, we are trying to change the direction of travel for many of these diseases. And we're hopeful at AstraZeneca, not only our investments around the world, the differences we're making here in the United States will help us get those breakthroughs into the hands of patients sooner than later.
AstraZeneca recently announced a $50 billion investment in the United States. What does that mean for medical research, manufacturing, and innovation here at home?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And it's a pleasure to be speaking to the people of Illinois. First and foremost, let me ground you. Illinois, we're part of the Molecular Profiling Quality Initiative, a collaboration with academic medical centers, state public health bodies, and research consortiums to identify care gaps and improve quality of care for patients with non-small cell lung cancer. So what does that mean in the real world? We're working hand in hand with the local ecosystem that are supporting these patients to have the ambition of earlier intervention. That is the key of making a huge difference across cancer, cardiovascular disease, respiratory disease, kidney care, as well as lupus and a host of others. If we are capable of diagnosing earlier, treating earlier, we protect vital organs, we slow progression, and we actually help those patients live longer, healthier lives. In the US today, we are showing up in a very practical way. We have 15,000 people already enrolled in clinical trials around the United States, 9 million patients on our medicines. And the very investments that we're mentioning here are the ones that are going to further allow us to go and impact more patients' lives.
So for families watching, what does that investment mean in real life? How will it help patients and communities across the country?
Yeah. Well, let me make that more specific around chronic disease. So let's bring it to life. If you ask anyone in the United States about hypertension, they know it's real. They've seen it in their own families, they're living with it themselves, and therefore it requires that we as a pharmaceutical industry are bringing novel medicines to life so that we can treat these chronic diseases like hypertension. Let me personalize it. Many people in Illinois are living with hypertension, and it has an annual cost of $3.5 billion to employees around your state. So AstraZeneca's investments allow us to bring these novel solutions to life. And I'm happy to announce that many of these patients today are taking 2 or more hypertensive medicines, but are not controlled. So treatment is not control. So AstraZeneca has now brought to market recently a new innovation that really helps patients to get to their goals. These investments in the United States allow us the opportunity to create hope and create an opportunity to protect these patients' vital organs for the long term. So that's just one example of how AstraZeneca's work in R&D and manufacturing can bring life-changing medicines to patients.
So many viewers either live with chronic disease themselves or know someone who does. What areas is AstraZeneca focused on right now to help improve outcome for patients?
Excellent. Well, our opportunity here is to go across the spectrum of chronic diseases. Right now, I've spoken about our impact in hypertension, a new medicine just launched into the US market 2 weeks ago. We're also focused in on asthma and COPD, and we're also focusing on weight management in the long term. The very investments that we're making here in the United States, the $50 billion that we've quoted, will afford us the opportunity not only to research a weight management portfolio that will be coming out from AstraZeneca very shortly, but it'll also help us to manufacture those drugs here in the United States. Weight management has been stigmatized for such a long period of time, and AstraZeneca is not narrowly focused just on weight. What we're focusing on is the overall cardiovascular health of these patients who may be struggling with their weight. These investments will really afford us to change the lives of many patients who've been struggling with a multitude of diseases, or better said, comorbidities that come with weight. And you think about my earlier comments, hypertension is one of the greatest risk factors associated with cardiovascular disease. So AstraZeneca is not only tackling hypertension, we're also going to be focusing more on dyslipidemia in the future and weight. Imagine the solutions that patients can soon experience with AstraZeneca's investments here in the US and abroad.
And for anyone who'd like to learn more about AstraZeneca's research, clinical trials, ongoing works in the area, where can they go for more information?
Yeah, well, AstraZeneca.com is going to be your best resource to understand what AstraZeneca is not only doing here in the United States, but in your local community. And further, you would have a preview of all of the investments we're making across our clinical studies and all of the recent approvals that we've had of our cardiovascular, cancer, and respiratory medicines. I'm excited to say that just recently, throughout this year, we've had 8 FDA approvals. That information you will also find on AstraZeneca.com. These press releases can offer a lot of hope and education to patients as they are entering into their conversations about their treatments with their healthcare providers.
Well, Rick Suarez, thank you so much for the information and for being here this morning with us.
Avi, it's an absolute pleasure, and thank you so much for taking interest in this important subject.
And that is it for Rise Unwind. I want to thank you for tuning in and checking out the show. You can find us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube. Just look up at Rise Unwind. And until next week, that was the show we like to call Rise and Unwind.